Good afternoon and welcome back to Gulfstream Park. Thank you for joining us here on this Friday afternoon on Gulfstream. Today I'm Gabby Gaudette, joined by Acacia Courtney here, and we've got a lot of exciting action today. Of course, it's Beat the Expert Day, but a big day on tap tomorrow as well, Acacia.
We do have a big day tomorrow. It is mandatory payout, but first we do want to remind you, as you said, Beat the Expert today. Ron Nicoletti is the expert, and there are 10 races on today's card, so go to our Facebook page or GulfstreamPark.com to get your picks in before first post. You have just about an hour before the first post goes off, so make sure you get your picks in to see if you can pick more winners than Ron, and if you do, you get a chance to get one of those awesome polo shirts that say you beat the expert.
He looks very intimidating in that picture. I'm scared.
I think he's ready to roll today.
I think so, and he almost did it actually last time he did the Beat the Expert competition. I did horribly last week. You did all right as well. So hopefully things are starting to turn around here. It's going to be a really fun afternoon. And as you just mentioned, I want to remind everybody, tomorrow is mandatory payout in all those wagers. We've got the late pick 5, the 20-cent Rainbow 6, and the super high 5. We've got 4 stakes races in the sequence. And let me tell you, it took me hours upon hours upon hours to finish the card. So best of luck trying to play this ticket, the Rainbow 6, on a limited bankroll.
Oh, yeah, we have a nice carryover in the Rainbow 6 in today. Hopefully it carries over to tomorrow, but it is not an easy sequence, and we were talking about this. I started hitting the books the other day and just kept staring at this. You would get stuck on this one race for an hour or something trying to figure it out. So hopefully we're able to bring you some good information tomorrow. And don't forget, everything must go.
Yeah, the Via Borghese, the Tropical Park Oaks, the Tropical Park Derby. There's so many different ways to go, but we have pretty competitive racing on today's card too. We'll take a look at our featured wagers now, and we do start things off in race 1 with that rolling super high 5, and I'd imagine this bet to be pretty well back today because it's a $4,500 carryover, and it is a 7-horse field, a very manageable field. Sometimes when we see that type of situation, the rolling super high 5 is pretty heavily bet. And of course, race 1 kicks off the early pick 5. That is a 50-cent based wager, and it is a mandatory payout every day. Acacia has a ticket for that we'll get to in just a few moments. Looking ahead to race 5, we do start the Rainbow 6, $343,000 there in that carryover. In race 5 and race 6 kicks off the 50-cent late pick 5. That wager is not mandatory. Of course, if it is not hit, it will carry on to the next day, but all of those wagers will be mandatory payout come tomorrow. So you have a ticket for the late pick 5 too. Let's dive into the action. We've got a lot of ground to cover as per usual, and we start things off with this non-winners of 2 lifetime event, 5.5 furlongs on the main track. Acacia, let's see how you approach today's pick 5.
Well, I went too deep to start it off in here. I like Scandals Keep Coming and Dancing Wind. Too deep in the next. I do think Uno Dude is going to be the one to beat, but I do like Little Havana a bit in there as well. Spread in the 3rd race, though I do think that Skippy is back as the horse to beat, but if she doesn't end up winning this race today, then I thought that left it to be a wide open affair. Then 2 deep in the 4th and 3 deep in the finale. Again, partly Mocha, the horse to beat, but a couple nice horses to wrap it up in the early pick 5 for $48.
Okay, and that is it, $48 for the early pick 5. And sometimes the early pick 5 is kind of difficult because although we do have 7-horse fields, kind of manageable fields, it's also lower level claimers, which can always be a little bit inconsistent, so a little tough to tackle. How did you see this first race?
I mentioned I liked Scandals Keep Coming, and that's where I did land on top, but as I said, a couple different ways to go, but I think that Scandals Keep Coming with the class drop and the return to the dirt looks like she's going to be a tough one in here. We do have a trainer stat on trainer David Brady as well, going turf to dirt in sprints at the claiming level. Pretty good percentages it is a negative ROI of 176, but 23% win, 50% in the money. So he has had success with this kind of move. And what I do like about this particular horse is that she's been competitive against tougher on both surfaces. She finished a good third against 25,000 condition claimers a few starts back. So it is kind of an aggressive drop for her. But I do think that this might be the spot where she can win.
I think that she is the horse to beat on that aggressive drop, and she also has a little bit of speed, so she's not going to be too far off of the pace. So she's the horse to beat on paper on the class relief. I was a little bit interested in the 7, Like a Charm here, and last time out, for the first time in a long time, she got to the main track, but unfortunately it was a sloppy sealed track, and honestly, I didn't think that she even liked the conditions of that surface. I know she was second beaten just, third beaten just 3/4 of a length, but it didn't look like she was handling the surface well. If you go back to last year, 2015, she was actually going against Starter Allowance Optional Claiming Company and managing to get third against much higher levels than what she's facing today, and those were on a fast main track. So I think there's a little bit more to her now getting to a dry track.
Yeah, that certainly may be the key. So I threw her on there as well. Didn't use her in my top 2, but I do think that she's definitely a live one in here. Do like to see Edgard Zayas in the saddle as well. And I also had a little bit of interest in the number 4, Baby Antonella, who's one of 2 in here for Jose Garofalo, both of which look to have a little bit of early speed, Sky Cotton being the other one. But I think that Sky Cotton's the need the lead type. I thought that Baby Antonella might set a good trip.
All right, that is race 1. Once again, super high 5 carryover, $4,500, and that does start the early pick 5 as we get to the second, a maiden $50,000 event. 7 furlongs there on the main track, just 1 scratch of the 2. And Acacia, you land on the 4, Little Havana, Julien Leparoux in the saddle now.
But this one's dropping from special weight to claiming for the first time, and it's a nicely bred one as well. Has had a couple of races under her belt. She's a half-2 graded stakes place Lionheart, who did win at 2 and did win sprinting on the dirt. A 2-year-old filly by Tapazar. And I like the class drop in here. I do like to see Julien Leparoux in the saddle as well.
And the only thing about Little Havana that made me want to look for other options in here was because it was an okay field at Churchill. It wasn't the best kind of maiden special weight that we've seen, but it was okay. We saw Belted come out and win a maiden special weight at Turfway Park. The thing about her was that it looked like she was headed in the wrong direction to like going more distance at 7 furlongs, but the class relief could just be all that. She just could improve with the class relief alone. But visually, it looked like she was going in an opposite direction than I prefer. We have the 6 Uno Dude, who's definitely making a lateral move there. She faced a restricted Florida-bred maiden special weight company last time out. And the one thing about her last race, though, was that she never switched leads coming down the lane. She looked very green. Tyler Gaffleone was just trying to keep a straight course on her, and she was kind of going in and out. And she was starting to move in a forward direction once he corrected her. So I'm thinking with 1 race under her belt, maybe moving forward from a mental standpoint and distance standpoint, we could see a better performance from her.
She's definitely not one to leave off in here in this race, and she is going to be the horse to beat. And you look on paper, certainly the horse to beat, having a run at the state bred maiden special weight level and finish third after she did get corrected. I agree, she looked very green, so now she's got some experience. And you know, she's one to use in here. The number 8 to the outside, though, Cuba Gua, is going back to Claiming Company, where she actually debuted, and she ran well there in her debut.
She did, and I guess they thought so confidently of her to step her up to the maiden special weight level. But when her first start, she made a big move at the quarter pole, and I just thought she was simply beaten by better. We saw Trudge come back to run 4th against Stakes Company, 3rd place finisher coming back to win, albeit on the turf. But it was productive. It produced a couple of winners, and now with 2 races under her belt, I kind of like that because she started off at 5.5 furlongs, then 6, now 7, so it's a steady progression in distance.
And that's fair too, and this is the kind of race too, you have all of the horses in here that do have some experience under their belt, and I guess the key is really deciding which race might have been the most productive or the most of a learning experience, really.
And the tricky one here, and I'm telling you this now, I'm just going to take an approach, wait and see approach with all these horses from Woodbine Synthetic onto the main track here in their first start. But the 7 Conquest Rapiduno, is an intriguing one given the most recent workout on the main track here at Gulfstream.
And the last two, in fact, and really the most recent one, 5 furlongs, a bullet, a minute and 2, the fastest of the 14 that worked at that distance in that day. So that's definitely something to take into account. We've been saying with these shippers, you do like to see a local work or even a race over the local track, but looking like she's faring pretty well on this dirt.
So maybe a tricky race indeed. As we get to the third race, an open 6250 claiming condition, 5.5 furlongs there on the main track. And we will start off with a video spotlight replay of Skippy is Back, a horse that you and I both land on here for Bernardo Lopez. And last time out did face that open 6250 condition. She's faced this type of competition before. And she showed a lot of speed. I thought this was a good performance. That day, I thought she did have a little bit of an advantage drawing the outside post position. She drew 6 of 7 horses. Today, she does draw the rail. She's probably going to be pressed a little bit from a horse to her outside, but overall a good performance.
It was overall a pretty solid performance for Skippy is Back. She does get Carlos Oliveira in the saddle today, and that was that last race was off of about a 3-month freshening as well. And I think that she has to be sent from the rail today, but we do have a stat on trainer Bernardo Lopez in the past 5 years with horses that were in the money last time out in sprint races, 22% win, 53% in the money, and a positive ROI of 253. So that is certainly something to take into account if she can stand any pressure coming from the outside.
And if you look at the potential pressers, I would say the 7 Our Girl She Gone would be maybe one, maybe even Gracious Humor. I don't quite think that she's fast enough, but definitely the 7 could pressure her and take a little bit of wind out of her sail. So I think in turn you have to protect yourself with maybe a stalker or a closer, and that would come by way of the 2 Don't Tell Vanessa.
This one taking a very big drop, second off the claim for trainer Angel M. Rodriguez. First off the claim, he tried her on the turf last time, and she was in the back throughout, just didn't really run a step there, even though she has had some solid races on the turf earlier in her career. It looks like the dirt is definitely her preferred surface, and she is certainly one that's going to sit a trip.
And she's kind of got confusing form, so I'm interested to see what kind of a price you get on her, because turf, dirt, you know, different distances, new connection. So it is hard to have a good grasp on her, but if that pace scenario comes to fruition, she should be picking up the pieces late. As we turn our pages to the 4th race, a 6250, non-winners of 3 lifetime condition going the flat mile on the main track, Acacia, and you go to the number 6, Equilibrium, as I do as well.
Well, I admit I actually scratched into this horse. I did have some interest in the number 9 Granny Denti Dodd for Victor Barbosa Jr., who did scratch out of the race, but Equilibrium stretching out in distance, moved back over to the dirt last time, going 6 furlongs in the non-winners of 3 and finished a good second. Now stretches out to the mile in here as well, where he's actually only run once before, and it was on a sloppy track, and that's only once on the dirt, but he has gone a little bit longer on the turf, and talk about a horse with confusing form. He is one of those too, I think.
Well, the reason why I liked him is because when it seems like a horse that when he gets a little bit more distance, he can find himself more closer to the pace. And at the quarter pole, he doesn't have so much to do. He was closing, just couldn't close in time last time out. He's got some back numbers that do fit this competition, but that was the main reason why I like the stretch out here, is that he's going to be left with not so much to do as he did last time out, or generally speaking, as he is at sprint distances. He liked 7 furlongs. He did win at 3/4, but I think 7 furlongs in a mile is probably a better distance for this horse. The 2 Battle Red, though, is probably going to be the one to catch. Did the sloppy sealed track enhance his form? It did tend to be a good speed day that day, and that was the first time facing non-winners of 3, so I wonder if he could regress off of that form.
That is the question, too, because he notched the non-winners of 2 starts back very impressively at Gulfstream Park West, and he just took the lead and never looked back in that race. And then he tried the non-winners of 3 after taking a long time to notch that second career victory. And he did have that sloppy track there, but he's got the speed. I do think from the outside, the number 10 Union Vow might be one to show a little bit of early interest as well. He certainly has on the turf. He's switching over to the dirt now too, so we'll see if he has that speed. But if Battle Red is the lone speed in here, you do have to wonder if he's going to be caught.
I don't think, and you make a good point, because I don't think Battle Red will be the lone speed, because Union Vow is very, very fast, especially at sprint distances. And I use the 10 Union Vow. I don't think he's going to be successful at this mile distance. He does have the feel to be a little bit more of a sprinter, but it's a positive trainer switch here. You go you go from a 3% barn on the year to a 21% barn on the year. So if that's of any consequence here, we could see this horse vastly improve. But I didn't pick him on top for that very reason. I'm waiting to for this horse to maybe cut back in distance.
That's what I'm waiting for too. Wait and see approach of a horse that does promise to be a bit of a short price.
All right, that's races 1 through 4. We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll tackle the 20-cent Rainbow 6 at carryover, continuing to grow right after this.
January 28th at Gulfstream Park, an icon takes flight. The world's richest thoroughbred horse race. 12 of the sport's finest horses. One race. $12 million on the line. Watch, wager, witness. Go to PegasusWorldCup.com for more.
And Gulfstream is pulling away. Gulfstream blows them away with an eye-opening performance. Awesome again has won. Gulfstream kicking clear.
Welcome back to Gulfstream today. Gabby Gaudette joined by Acacia Courtney. Now looking at the 20-cent Rainbow 6. We've got a big carryover once again, $343,000 here. And I did take a stab at the sequence and, of course, try to use this as a base because I played it on a limited bankroll here. But I did find a single in the sequence to make it more affordable. $43.20 will have to do it for me. And I did single Tricked Up in the 8th race. It's a very nice race. You could probably make a case for several in there, but I'm going to have a little bit of confidence in Chad Brown that he can be victorious with Tricked Up. She's been in very good form as of late. And other than that, using 2 horses to start things off, I thought the road really went between the 1 and the 5, Partly Mocha and Divine Warrior in the first leg of the sequence. Using 3 by 3, single by 3, spreading in the last race. I thought that was a wide open event. So we start things off 5 furlongs on the turf for this starter allowance optional claiming event.
And I agree with you here that it does go between Partly Mocha and Divine Warrior, and they're both coming out of the Canterbury, and we'll go back and show that race because I do think it's a pretty good indication of what you're going to expect from these 2 horses in here.
And I will say, so looking at both Divine Warrior and Partly Mocha, you have to take into consideration the pace in this race. They went very fast, 21 and change, 44 and change for the half 2, and the pace kind of just collapsed. So I do think that it's set up for both of these horses. I think it's probably going to set up for them once again today. But the reason why I like Divine Warrior over Partly Mocha is that he's a better horse when he's a little bit closer to the pace. And unfortunately, breaking from the 12 post last time out in the Canterbury, he couldn't be any closer. He just had to take back, try to save ground, and make that 1-run move. Today, different post position to the inside, and I can see this horse maybe rating, stalking, maybe 2 lengths from off of the pace. So I think that's where he could have the benefit over Partly Mocha.
And he's had some nice stalking trips on the dirt. He switched back over to the turf last time for the Canterbury, and Connections decided to keep him on the turf today, which is definitely an interesting move considering that he has had success on both surfaces. In fact, all 3 of his wins did actually come on the dirt, so he's yet to win on the turf. But I do agree with you. I think that he'll be a bit closer. He's got to work out a trip from the rail in here. And last time out, we saw in the video, he had to swing so wide, having to be stuck coming from the 12 post in there, whereas Partly Mocha was the 7. And I know that you spoke to Ken Ramsey on that day, and he thought that was actually his best chance of winning a claiming crown race, and he got close. He was only beaten by a neck in the Canterbury, and this was a horse that had been in good form on the turf. So it is interesting to figure out how the pace might set up for these 2.
Yeah, they clearly have some confidence in this horse. You know, they claimed him a while back last year, but they've had a lot of success with him so far this year, and it looks like he's getting even into the best form of his life. He ran a career best of a 90 Beyer speed figure last time out, and he loves this local turf course. So I'm not trying to get creative here, just liking those two. But I was a little interested in Ribs in the House, the number 4. And just because he showed the ability to kind of rate last time out, so showing that he might not be so one-dimensional as I always thought he was, but he does have speed. I still think he's best when he makes a lead, and maybe that's going to be the case with Joel in the saddle now.
I agree. I think that he's best on the front end. He did try to rate a little bit last time. In fact, that might have been one of his only options in that race. He comes out of the Canterbury as well and was beaten just a little bit over 2 lengths.
All right, we'll turn our attention to the 6th race here to kick off the late pick 5, maiden special weight going 7.5 furlongs on the turf. Acacia, let's see your late pick 5 ticket.
Well, I have a single as well. It's not the same single as yours, though I do agree that Tricked Up is going to be the one to be in the 8th race. I did single Bronson in the 9th race for Todd Pletcher, who's trying the turf for the first time. I do think he's bred for the turf. I know it's a little bit of guesswork in that race, but trying to keep it affordable. Again, trying to give a guide in here because I did spread in the first couple of races and in the last. So my pick 5 ticket goes through Bronson today.
Okay, using 4 horses to start off the pick 5, a wide open maiden special weight event. And looking at this field, Acacia, you landed on the number 10, Berna Diva, second time on the turf for trainer Bill Mott.
And we do have a stat on trainer Bill Mott. When he has maidens on the turf riding Jose Lascano, very good numbers in here. I thought it was interesting because we do know that Jose Lascano is his go-to jock. They have a positive ROI with maidens on the turf, 19% win, 42% in the money. And I thought that this one, after getting a yielding turf last time out, finishing 3rd behind Grateful, who did come back to win here at Gulfstream for Todd Pletcher with a 72 Beyer speed figure the next time out. Also getting Lasix for the first time, and maybe getting a firm turf course today will be all that this filly needs.
And we'll go back and show her last replay there on the 30th of October. Of course, sometimes it's just like kind of looking at a horse who's liked an off track and thinking that they're going to improve on a firm on a fast track. Same goes for a horse who, you know, might have liked a little bit of give in the ground. Will they like a very firm course? Because a yielding course at Belmont is so different than a firm course here at Gulfstream. So that's always a question. But this was a very strong race. Defiant Honor came back to run second in the Grade 3 Jimmy Durante at Del Mar. We also saw the second place finisher Grateful come back to win a maiden special weight here at Gulfstream with a 72 Beyer speed figure. And I also thought this filly made the lead a little bit too soon, and it was hard to sustain after that. But Jose Lascano in the saddle today. It looks like she's been working well at Payson Park for Belmont. She is the horse to beat. I am trying to beat her, though.
And that's fair. And you go to the number 7, Follow No One, who is certainly looking like she's sitting on a good performance after 2 seconds at a mile and a 16th and at a mile.
She comes out of less competitive maiden special weights than the favorite, or Bernardiva in here. So that is the concern, but at least she has recency. She's got a couple races under her belt. We last saw her in mid-November. She was supposed to win last time out, and I will say the only successful horses out of that race have dropped in class, but her race 2 starts back actually wasn't bad. Compelled came out to win at Gulfstream Park West, a little restricted Florida bred stake, and I like the fact that, again, this is a horse who has speed, who's not so reliant on the pace, so she can kind of work out her own trip. Whether or not she's good enough is the question, but I will go to her just given a running style.
And I like her running style, too. I put her a little bit lower on my ticket because I did think that she was going to be facing a little bit tougher in this field. And the number 1, Storm the Hill, is one who's going back to the turf after finding a sloppy track last time out, which she did show pressuring the pace last time out. And she was more forward in that race than she had been on the turf, but the turf definitely seems to be a preferred surface.
And you can see in the short comment in her last turf start, bothered at the start, bumped around. I didn't really see it that way. I didn't think the break really affected the outcome of the race. And I think that she was just kind of simply outridden by the other horse coming down the stretch. But she's definitely got some talent here. And I think when to use, she should be able to get a nice ground-saving trip. She just needs it looks like a horse that needs a very aggressive ride coming down the stretch. It takes a little bit of time to get her wheels going. So I hope that's the case here today. But with that, that's where I thought she might have been a bit vulnerable, and I landed on the 7 here. But a very nice maiden special weight race, and I agree with your approach to try to spread there. I used 3 horses in that leg of the sequence. As we get to the 7th and open $16,000 event, a mile onto the turf course, Acacia, and you go to the number 7, Just Fooling Around, for trainer Timmy Hills.
And Just Fooling Around and the one Not Today, I think are the main contenders in this race, and we kind of have them flip-flopped a bit. I do think it's a little bit of a lateral move for Just Fooling Around, going from the optional claiming level to this open 16, but he was facing state-bred competition in his last 2, and I thought that they were pretty solid races, which is why I did put him on top today. And he ran a 4th beat in about 3 lengths, last time out, making up a lot of ground. I do think he'll be a bit closer to the pace today.
And we can see that there's going to be a decent pace, I would say. We've got Dr. Goldfarb, Starship Frontiers probably going to be on the lead. So I don't know if it's going to be a very fast pace. So I think that is mandatory for a horse like this to probably find himself a bit closer to the pace. Now, I'm talking about a closer, and we have Not Today, who pretty much closed from way back off of the pace. We'll show this video spotlight replay of his last performance. The old 9-year-old in great form, in the best form of his life here. Great performance, I thought. He was he quickened very fast coming down the lane. We can see number 8. He's not even in your picture screen yet. But once he starts to get moving, I thought it was a good performance, and they didn't go that quickly in front of him. So I wouldn't say that it necessarily set up for him. He just ran very well to kind of mow down the rest of the field. He was very wide, and as I was mentioning, quickened very fast down the lane. And sometimes when we see Carlo Vaccarezza, his horses, they put in a good performance, they continue to get better and better, or they continue to stay in form. Just a case in point would be Lobelia and the work that he's done with her lately, and I could get the same type of feel for a horse like this too.
Absolutely. Won impressively last time in the first start in the barn of Carlo Vaccarezza, and that was with Luca Panici in the saddle, who's going to stay aboard today. And we have seen that kind of thing when horses move into his barn and they start to round into their form and start to find themselves a bit. We have seen that same kind of thing. So I don't think that bouncing off such a big closing effort is anything that you have to worry about with Not Today. As I said, it looks like these 2 are going to be the main ones to beat. Not Today goes from 16 non-winner to 3 right to this open company, but I do think that he belongs in here.
And yes, he will have to face that open condition today. But as we get to the 8th race on the card, it does kick off our final pick 3 of the day, 7.5 furlongs on the turf for this allowance optional claiming event. And this is where my single comes into play. Fingers crossed that we can get this horse up. Tricked Up. We'll go back to his last performance at Aqueduct on a soft going, very soft that day. But overall, this is a horse we saw that he was pretty precocious first time out, and then they gave him some time off. They brought him back in August. He immediately won a nice maiden special weight at Saratoga, and here another decent performance. I like the versatility too of this horse's running style, because here he actually closed, whereas before he's been kind of just stalking the pace. So I like him, and Chad Brown just has so much success with these horses.
And he has, and really he's done nothing wrong in his 3 starts as of yet, so you can't really knock him on anything. He was a good second in his debut in May at Belmont. They went over to Saratoga. He did manage to win there, going a mile and a 16th on the turf and special weight company. Then he tried that other than last time on the soft going, and that was off of about a 4-month layoff too, and he still was able to close and make up ground there. We know that Chad Brown does do very good work off the layoff. He's a $500,000 3-year-old colt by Distorted Humor. And I really, on paper, there's nothing to knock. I think he is the horse to beat Joel Rosario up.
We have a trainer stat, I believe, for him as well. Chad Brown, over the past 5 years here, second after the layoff in the money, last out on the turf here at Gulfstream.
And this was interesting that it is just a $1.48 ROI, but it was the percentages that I was looking at because it is a pretty specific stat to be in the money last out on the turf and just looking locally. So 24% win, 55% of the time in the money, and still a solid sample size of 42, but it is something to take into account that a horse like this, as well as his other horse, Artie Type, will probably be pretty well bet.
And we have another horse that I was kind of interested in, the number 5, Ross J. Dog. Going to be using this horse in the exacta because he finally gets to a firm turf. And the last time he did that, he won. I also think it's a horse that once distance, you know, they've kind of dabbled in sprinting him at 6 furlongs, even 5.5 furlongs, but those middle distances like 7 furlongs or even the mile, I think is probably his best. So shopping for a little bit of a price there, but you land on the 4 and play for Tom Bush, who is consistent as the day is long.
He really is consistent, and that's why I landed on him. And he's coming out of a race that Ross J. Dog actually ran into, so they're pretty familiar with themselves. He had a yielding turf course last time out at Belmont as well, sprinting on the grass, so he gets a little bit more distance in here, and he does have some early speed. I think he'll show some early interest in this race.
We get to race 9 on the card, the first half of the late daily double. 5 furlongs on the turf for this very competitive allowance optional claim, our feature race of the day. And occasionally this is where your single comes into play. The number 2, Bronson, trying to make his turf debut.
Trying to make his turf debut. I know you did pick against him, and I singled him, trying to keep my ticket affordable, but there are several ways you could go in here. Apache Brave certainly is an interesting one, but I did land on Bronson trying the turf. Now, he won his debut impressively. They put him right into the Grade 3 Sanford, where he did win, but I do think that he's bred for the turf, and that's why I think that he'll be able to make that move. He's been working at Palm Beach Downs for Todd Pletcher. He's coming off of about a 5-month layoff, so it is interesting that he tried a Grade 3 on the dirt, now trying the turf here off the layoff. But I think, again, favorites are your friend with the multi-race wagering. He will be pretty well bet, though.
I don't know what to do with this horse because, like you said, he was so popular at the windows his first start. He went off as the heavy favorite. We've seen time and time again that kind of during the summer, Todd sends a lot of horses to Monmouth, and then the others kind of go to Saratoga. And a lot of the time, especially this summer, we saw a lot of his Monmouth horses have success at Monmouth and transition that to Saratoga. This horse had a bit of a tough trip there in the Sanford. And yes, he is bred. And on the bottom side, the mare was all turf. She was a Grade 3 winner on the turf. She made $500,000. So there is some turf pedigree. I just wonder why they wouldn't try him once again on the dirt. Maybe they're trying him on the turf, freshen him up off of that layoff. He could definitely win today, but I think there are some question marks with here, and I'm not trying to get clever. I'm just going with a horse, really the only horse who has proven that he can sprint on the turf. And we'll show this replay of Apache Brave. This was his race 2 starts back against Maiden Special Weight Company. And he ran a good race. It was his career best race, and he just looks like a horse that continues to improve. He's bred for the turf, so I don't think it's been any fluke that he's liked it. And they stretched him out in his next start, going the mile. He clearly doesn't like the mile, but they gave him enough time to recover from that subpar experience. And that's about it for me. He's listed as a new time gelding, but he's got speed. He's proven sprinting on the turf, so why not?
There's a lot to like about him for sure, and if you are trying to find an alternative to Bronson, you'll definitely get a better price on Apache Brave. I like the cutback in distance. I like him much more sprinting on the turf than going long, and he has that edge of being successful on the turf when you have horses like Bronson or the number 6 Derek Smile, who's trying the turf for the first time as well. This is another interesting one who's only had one race. It was an impressive maiden win, but now he's been on the shelf for about 6 months, and he's coming in to try the turf for the first time as well.
And Draft Beer, this is a weird horse that I like for some reason today. But Dane Kabisky, he's very sneaky with these types of horses. And it's almost like I could predict this horse is going to shoot out of the gate and try to maybe wire. We already saw a huge price do that on the main track for Dane Kabisky and Alberto Delgado. The duo tried to team up here today, but he's been working well. His first 2 races were pretty good, all considering. He got into trouble last time out and was chasing I think his MO would be to go in this turf sprint, but a big price.
Absolutely, and you do have a couple other horses with speed in here, which is why I did back off and kind of take a wait-and-see approach, because it is going to be a big price. But Dame Kabisky has a couple in here, also has the number 4, Ishod the Sheriff, so he's coming in with a little bit of a 1-2 punch. Both horses coming off the layoff, trying the turf for the first time, so a lot of unknowns in the 9th race.
All right, let's get to the 10th and final. The nightcap, a $16,000 non-winners, a 2 lifetime event, 7.5 furlongs there on the turf. And we'll start things off with a video spotlight replay of the number 1 Swapple, a horse that you do use on top. And this is a horse who I thought made up a lot of ground coming down the stretch. We had a little bit of an incident at the top of the stretch. A horse did go down. Both horse and rider were surprisingly okay. This horse was pretty much unscathed, but he was wide coming around the turn.
He was forced to be wide because of that. And you go 2 starts back, he was running against Tougher. That was in 30,000 non-winners of 2, going a mile in his 16th. Dropped in class to this 16 non-winners of 2, which I think is probably where he does belong. Emisel Jaramillo rode him in those last 2 times, and he did make up a lot of ground having to be wide last time. And it is hard to gauge off of a race like that, where you can't look at the race for exactly what it is, because there was that spill in there. But I do think the number 3 Legend of the Kitten is going to take a lot of money in here. So, and I didn't completely trust him, but that's why I tried to find an alternative and landed on Swapple.
And she'll be close sitting. She'll be a little bit closer sitting on the drop-in class from Allowance Company. But always with these, and we talk about Ken and Sarah Ramsey, Mike Maker dropping their horses in class, just dropping them at a level where they can win. I don't really think this is a questionable drop. It just does look like she is a little bit dependent on the speed here, so she needs to be a little bit more forwardly placed. One of the speed horses could be the 10 Sober on Sunday. However, on the bottom side, Margarita Friday, she really didn't want to go farther than pretty much 3/4, so I wonder about the distance for this filly. But my top selection comes in the 9 Branna's Bucket, who I thought ran very well, closing into a pace that held together at a mile and a 16th last time out. She's going to have to get her wheels going a little bit early, because she's probably better at a mile and a 16th, but I think she's capable at 7.5 furlongs.
And probably coming off of about a 4-month layoff, going a little bit shorter, might be just trying to get a race of her before the year ends, but she's been in excellent form before that layoff against Tougher.
All right, that is races 1 through 10. Once again, want to remind everybody we have a carryover in the Rainbow Six, $343,000, and we have a carryover in that Super High Five in race 1, $4,500. So come out and join us here at Gulfstream Park. Best of luck on today's card.
And don't forget about Beat the Expert with Ron Nicoletti.